impromptu meeting spaces that that foster that environment.
Would you, I'm curious, would you see in the future that your total employee count is far greater than your seat count? Do you see really going to a true more hoteling, as we used to call it? Or do you see that it's really, there are still dedicated spaces for people, but they just won't necessarily occupy those full time?
I think we will probably get to a position where we'll have more hoteling spaces here. Right now, we just have primarily seats for employees that are working on site, and they may be off doing their work, traveling to other locations. But I think what we're doing now is the department heads or the administrative assistants for those areas know when those people are traveling. Anyone else traveling from other departments, everybody's understood you may have a dedicated workspace, but while you're away, you may have someone else sitting at your space, especially in those departments that do a lot of travel. So it's kind of you may have your name on a workstation, but understand that office or that workstation may be utilized when you're away. It's not a full dedicated. I mean, people in those departments understand that.
Since your consolidation a few years ago into 770 here in New York, and the recent acquisition of the Huffington Post, and your migration to a more interactive and collaborative work style, are there other ways that you see the employee work style trending that we haven't already touched on?
It really kind of, the business units, it depends on the business unit. And you found that the cookie cutter or standardized workstation approach isn't really working for us now.
Where everybody has the same space
everyone
type?
has the same same workstation. I think, you've got the media that has more of a benching style, or some of the back-end functions, HR, finance, recruiting, have more of a cubicle structure. And then we had offices that had director level and above. Directors are now going into workstations, and in some cases, VPs are sharing offices. So it's a different environment, and I think the goal from our leadership is to get all offices, either do away with most offices or turn them into collaborative huddle spaces, and not even have offices.
And are you getting any pushback from those senior level people that used to be in a dedicated, isolated office where they had a lot of privacy and security, where they're now being asked to go into workstations? Or I'm curious what percentage is resisting and what percentage is really a proponent of the new flexible work style?
I would say there is some hesitation to leave a space that they've become accustomed to, and some of them it's an entitlement. Some of them, even in some cases where we're hiring new employees that come in at a VP level or have an MBA, they think because they've achieved a certain educational level or gotten so far in their life that they are due an office. But the culture here, they either are on board with the culture or they look somewhere else, And really the leadership is kind of wanting to foster that, and they're more about the culture than entitlements, I think, or what people may expect. So there is some resistance, yes. The percentage, I would say probably initially 100%, but when the reality kicks in, and then they actually see. If they adopt it, get out there, I know I've personally talked to a lot of the directors. There was some resistance from the director team, but once I got out there, a lot of them don't say, I don't want to go back into an office. I find that I hear more about what's going on with the team. I'm able to interact with the team more. I feel more connected to my team than I ever did before. So if they continue to hear that and they experience that, I think the rest of it will come along in time. But I think there's going to be resistance. People like their spaces.
And there is a great transformation. I remember in the past you and I had spoken about how people on two of the particular floors here, which were very office intensive and higher workstation panels, those people felt that was more important, but when you built out your last phase of your facility here, with lower panel heights and much more open and collaborative, it sounded like that was more the highly coveted floor.
It is, and we've done a couple little test areas on the 4th floor and 5th floor, and now we've got other teams that are wanting to do the same thing up here on 6. So just more of a bench or table.
Right. Where you can
cluster of tables.
You can see eye contact of the team you're working with, and I think a lot of that nonverbal communication is what we're seeing as more of a demand from our various different client sectors today.
Yeah, it was. We got up here on the 6th floor. The glass, there's only like a foot glass at the top. Just a little privacy panel, and a team that was on the 4th floor, where they had adopted those just table model. They got up here immediately, and I walked up one day, and they had unscrewed and taken the glass off and setting it on the side. So they wanted it, and then we're like, all right. So we took it off, we removed it. And
another one of our questions today was, obviously your headquarters are here in New York. It's really setting the standard for what's happening globally for you. It sounds like moving forward, our question was really about, would you think of developing a standard that would work for all of your offices around the world, or would you develop them to really specifically adapt to that local culture? And I think I know the answer to that based on what you were just talking about.
Well, part of it, I don't think there's going to be a standard workstation to fit all AOL sites. I mean, the standard I think is going to be just a very flexible systems furniture or product that is low cost, and you don't have a huge investment if in 3 years your business model changes again, or you change aspects of your business and you have to redo a floor or a section of a floor.
Or your end users immediately start using things in a different manner. You want them to be able to use the same product or architectural fit out in a different way.
Right, and I think that's I don't think there's, the standard will be just very flexible and low cost. The trend to adapt the culture of the business, not necessarily the local culture. And the design will probably be influenced by the leadership, what they bring to the table. A lot of our leadership came from Google, so a lot of the new culture and influence is kind of have that influence to it. So while the previous leadership had a Time Warner
a little more corporate.
Yeah, corporate feel to it. So you can see the influences of both here at 770.
So as we were walking through today, we really noticed that a lot of your staff, especially here in New York, it's a younger demographic, and we're kind of curious, given the way that workplace is trending and employees and companies are trending, do you feel or do you see that private workspaces are as important for the younger generation, or do you think that's really something that they're comfortable having fade away?
Some of the employees really desire a private workspace, or it matters a lot to them. Others, some of the younger generation, they are less, they don't care. They just need a couch or a comfortable place to work. The folks that I think I mentioned earlier, where they come from a certain level or a certain educational background, they feel more that an office or a private workspace is something that they're expecting.
And it proves their success for that generation.
Yeah. So I would say that for that group of people, which we do, we don't, the majority is worker bees. The percentage is probably less, but their voice or their influence, they sometimes that gets heard, and so I think the overall is it doesn't matter to most of the employees about the workspace. They just need a comfortable environment to work in and to do their job. But with the technology the way it is today, and it gets better all the time, it kind of opens up allows for a smaller workspace, and allows for them to work from anywhere.
Right. So. Are there other trends or other things that you see in the environment that we haven't touched on today that you just feel might be compelling for us to know?
I think we've already turned 1 or 2 conference rooms that had fixed tables into tables that push together and to allow more flexibility in the room. So I think that's going to be an area we're going to be looking at, is just what spaces do we have today and how can they become even more flexible.
And that's because meetings today are not taking place where you're looking at documents on a flat table, but more presentations projected or discussed?
Yeah, it's presentation, or it's just using a space like this room that we're in today is, and maybe they want to do a small training or a team training that doesn't necessarily provide a table, you know, around a table perspective, but it's more of a instructor-led type. So they want it configured. They want to have flexibility. That's what I'm saying, is more flexibility in the workspace.
Got it. And also, I imagine in those same discussions and meetings, a lot of people are dialing in or
Right.
Virtual joining that meeting, so there's less demand for a physical, formal conference table in that kind of situation. Thank you very much for taking the time today. I think your feedback and insight is very influential, looking at an organization like yours, how large it is, how you guys are trending, the challenges you're being faced with as you're growing and acquiring other entities, and really the forecast that's you're heading for in the future. It helps, I think, other companies and ours in particular as we're looking at different types of workflow and work style and really designing the best for the future. So thank you for your time.